We begin this morning with the conviction of the president's son, Hunter Biden.
Yeah, he was found guilty yesterday of 3 federal felony charges tied to possession of a gun while using narcotics back in 2018. The trial lasted just over a week and was full of difficult details about Biden's drug abuse and addiction. It only took the jury about 3 hours to come to a verdict. Hunter Biden faces the potential of years behind bars. No sentencing date has been announced just yet. Special counsel David Weiss addressed the guilty verdict after it was announced.
No one in this country is above the law. Everyone must be accountable for their actions, even this defendant. However, Hunter Biden should be no more accountable than any other citizen convicted of this same conduct.
Later in the day, Hunter Biden greeted the president after he arrived in Wilmington, Delaware. The president put out a statement saying he accepts the outcome of the case and will respect the judicial process. President Biden has previously said he would not pardon his son.
Leading us off this morning, we have NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Good morning to both of you. Ken, I will begin with you. So the verdict was announced pretty quickly after we got word that there was one. So quickly, actually, in fact, that the First Lady was not able to pass through security and get inside the courtroom before it was read. Walk us through more details from inside yesterday.
Yeah, hey, good morning, Savannah and Joe. That's right. The rapidity of the verdict took a lot of people by surprise. For that reason, Jill Biden didn't get inside, but Hunter Biden reacted impassively inside the courtroom. He stared straight ahead, looked at the jurors a few times. He ended up emerging with his mother and his wife. And then we heard from him later. He expressed gratitude for the support he got from his family members. In a statement, his lawyer, Abby Lowell, suggested that they might appeal this conviction, expressed disappointment. And then we heard from special counsel David Weiss, the man who brought this case, a former Trump-appointed U.S. attorney appointed by Merrick Garland, special counsel. Here's more from David Weiss.
This case was about the illegal choices defendant made while in the throes of addiction, his choice to lie on a government form when he bought a gun, and the choice to then possess that gun. It was these choices and the combination of guns and drugs that made his conduct dangerous.
So these are 3 felony convictions. Mr. Biden does face prison time, although the sentence unknown at this point. That will happen a few months from now. And then he faces another trial on felony tax charges in September, guys.
So, Danny, what should we make of how much time the jury needed to deliberate, and also the little we've heard from inside the jury room about how they came to this decision?
It apparently wasn't a very difficult decision. I am surprised. Reportedly, it was split early on, apparently 6-6. That was at least what I've read. That surprises me. I rather thought there might be a couple holdouts for maybe an acquittal, maybe people struggling with the notion of addiction or whether or not the government had proven on a particular day that Hunter Biden had been an addict. But the jury instructions didn't require that he be proven to be an addict at a precise time. So I am not surprised at the short deliberations period. They came back. This is a case that you could wrap your head around. It's not a complex, white-collar, document-heavy case. It's guns, it's drugs. People understand that.
Ken, with the case over, jurors are now free to talk. What's been some of the reaction to the verdict and trial?
So interesting, Savannah. Some of them didn't think much of the case, and they had a lot of sympathy for Hunter Biden. One even called it a waste of taxpayer money. That may have been what explained the initial 6-6 split. But at the end of the day, as they went through the evidence, all the jurors decided that they had no choice but to convict. Many of them said they don't think Hunter Biden deserves jail time. Take a listen to one juror.
For us, it was not politically motivated. So politics never played in anything that we said in the jury room. We just had to find out whether he purchased a gun illegally or not. And, and that was the crust of the whole case.
So in an atmosphere where the legal system has become so politicized and attacked by both sides, the American jury system worked here. 12 members got together of all political persuasions and demographic persuasions and went through the evidence and decided they had no choice but to convict, even though some of them didn't think much of the case.
So, Danny, this is not the end of Hunter Biden's legal challenges. He's set to go on trial in September, this time on tax charges. What should we know about that case? Could this case we just got through have any impact at all on that one?
It will, in the sense that if Hunter Biden is sentenced and the second case starts, the reality is he's going to have a criminal history by the time he rolls into the second tax case. And if he's convicted and sentenced in that case, it puts you in an entirely different category of sentencing. It's not great to have a criminal history in federal court when you're being sentenced. And in this case, you may hear a lot of people in this gun case say that Hunter Biden is a candidate for a straight probation sentence. Over the last 18 or so hours, I've been really thinking about it, and I think folks should be ready for the reality that he's likely actually to get some time, maybe a split sentence, but he is likely to get a sentence of incarceration. His guidelines are 15 to 21 months. That usually calls for a sentence of incarceration. And don't forget, he's going to be before a judge in a part of the country who probably sentences a lot of people on drug cases that are far more disadvantaged than Hunter Biden. That doesn't make for a good look to a federal judge who deals with a lot of guns and drugs cases.
Danny and Ken, thank you both very much.
This morning is the 250th day of the conflict in Gaza, and there is a new push for a ceasefire as Antony Blinken heads to Qatar to meet with hostage negotiators.
The Secretary of State is also set to meet with the families of American hostages being held by Hamas. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Hey there, it's been nearly 2 weeks since President Biden laid out that ceasefire plan to end the war in Gaza and bring all the hostages home. And now, finally, there is a response from Hamas. But that response is not a clear yes, and it is not a clear no. The political leader of Hamas, along with his counterpart at Islamic Jihad, says that they are ready to make a deal to end this war, but they are seeking amendments to the ceasefire proposal that's on the table. That's according to a source familiar with the situation, who tells us that Hamas wants a timeline for when Israeli forces will fully withdraw from Gaza. It is not clear whether that is a commitment that Israel is prepared to make. So at this stage, a deal is still possible, but it may also be that the two sides remain quite some distance apart. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who has been traveling the Middle East, is heading to Qatar today to try to close the gaps between those two sides, to meet with the key Qatari mediators. And here in Israel, the military is saying that Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon have fired 160 rockets over the course of the day into northern Israel. That is one of the biggest bombardments of the entire war. Hezbollah responding to an Israeli strike that killed one of its senior commanders. So right now, the race is on to try to end one war and stop another one from flaring up. Back to you.
All right, Raf, thank you.
Well, back in the U.S., at least one person is dead after a gunman hijacked a city bus full of passengers in Atlanta yesterday. Since it was a hostage situation, more than 24 police cars chased the bus, and the whole thing was caught on camera. According to police, the suspect held a gun to the bus driver's head while forcing him to drive for nearly 20 miles before they disabled the vehicle. A 39-year-old man has been arrested, but it is still unclear why he hijacked the bus.
This morning, we're learning more about a high-profile sting operation. It led to the arrest of 8 men with suspected ties to ISIS living here in the United States.
According to 3 people familiar with the matter, the men from Tajikistan were detained over the weekend in New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. We should note that while they have not currently been charged with a terrorist connection or plot, they are facing removal proceedings before an immigration judge.
For more, we're joined by NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, good morning. So what more can you tell us about these 3 men and how they got here?
Well, it's a bigger group than that. Actually, there were 8 arrests across New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. All of those men are believed to have a suspected ISIS tie at this point, but as you point out, they have not yet been charged with a terrorism crime. They've simply been picked up on immigration, and they crossed over the southern border. I know at least 2 out of those 8 did come through in May and March of 2023, and at least one of those came through on the CBP One app, which means he didn't come illegally. That's the app that the Biden administration started so that immigrants could make asylum appointments. But we've seen a surge of migrants from around the world, not just Central America like we were seeing 5 years ago, not just South America like we started seeing more in the past 2 years. In this year, it's really been marked by a sea change of migrants coming from other parts of the world. And now we're seeing more coming from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, some Russian nationals. Some of these places do have ties to ISIS-K, which is starting to pose more of a threat globally, especially after that attack we saw in Moscow last fall.
How were investigators able to track the men down, and do we know what comes next?
Well, so we know that when they crossed the border, they had no derogatory information. That meant that they weren't on a terror watch list, that there was no criminal history that they had available to them when border agents checked their backgrounds. But later, because of the FBI, possibly because of a tip, we're not exactly sure, but they were able to start monitoring, keeping tabs on these men. And there was enough information there that they thought that ICE should know. They gave ICE this information, and ICE went and made the arrest. Again, this is sort of the way to go for the lowest hanging fruit here. They knew they had some immigration violations. They were at least withstanding, they were waiting for to go before an immigration judge, and so they could arrest them and detain them while waiting for that hearing. And so that's why ICE moved in, and probably while the FBI will continue their investigation, I would guess, although I don't have reporting on this, that at this point, FBI would want to talk to these men.
Julia, we know border security is a top political issue in the race for the White House. Just last week, President Biden signed that controversial executive action aimed at drastically tightening border security. Do officials think that will be enough to try and help clamp down on potential safety concerns like this?
You know, that's a great question. The one thing the executive action is supposed to do is bring down the numbers at the border. So in that way, yes, it's easier. Border agents aren't as stretched so thin so that they can do more checks. But I think what this case shows, and also the case of a Venezuelan gang we highlighted earlier this week, Venezuela is another country that doesn't share a lot of information with the United States. What all of that shows is that there's simply a lot of people who are crossing the border who the United States doesn't know anything about. It doesn't matter how much time you have or how much information the United States might collect. If they're coming from countries that simply don't share information or they don't digitize that information and it's not readily available to a border agent within the first 72 hours of their crossing, it's very likely those people will be released because they won't be deemed a threat to public safety or national security. And so the Biden administration is working on ways to improve this. Another executive action the president took last month is to give more classified information to immigration judges when they're deciding who can be released. But in short, this is a top concern, and it's not clear the executive action will completely take away those fears.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you so much.
Well, turning now to some good news about violent crimes in the U.S. Newly released statistics by the FBI show a historic drop in crime over the first quarter of this year. But that news comes as multiple people were shot at a popular shopping area. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has the details.
In Atlanta, multiple people shot at a downtown food court. Police say 3 were wounded. The suspect also shot.
Somebody screamed there's a shooting, there's a shooter, run.
It comes even as the latest FBI crime stats show violent crime actually dropped dramatically during the first 3 months of the year after surging during the pandemic. Among the 72% of police agencies reporting to the FBI, murder down 26% nationwide compared to a year ago. Rape down 25%, robbery down 17%. The city breakout in Chicago year-to-date, murders down 16%. D.C. down 24%. San Francisco down 38%. Philadelphia down 41%. Philly's police commissioner Kevin Bethel.
We have specific targeted areas of the city that have a large level of violence, and so we're really being very strategic.
But not all cities are seeing improvement. Murders are up double digits in L.A., Baton Rouge, Kansas City, Orlando, Wichita, and Colorado Springs. In Pompano Beach, Florida, police and federal agents just wrapped up a 6-week sweep targeting guns and drugs, arresting 132 suspects and confiscating dozens of weapons.
We come out, we risk our lives, we chase down the bad people.
And Washington, President Biden hammered home his efforts to reduce gun violence, even as his own son was convicted of illegally buying a firearm.
We all want our kids to have the freedom to learn how to read and write in schools instead of learn how to duck and cover, for God's sake.
Police departments say reducing violence often comes down to more cops on the streets, stricter criminal sentences, addiction help, and jobs. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. Well, now it is time for your morning news now. Weather, and in South Florida, millions are bracing for a soggy day ahead.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman has the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. No change in this forecast, unfortunately, for the Sunshine State. We're going to continue to see the really unsettled weather. And notice the flood watches are remaining in effect this morning for more than 7 million people. They, of course, include some of those hard-hit areas yesterday. Fort Myers, we've got West Palm Beach, Miami, and straight down towards the Keys. Still included in this and dealing with the rain this morning. Here's what plays out through the day. More of these kind of heavy downpours, the torrential rain that we saw much of yesterday, because we've got this stationary front kind of just hanging out across the center of Florida and leaving us with plenty of tropical moisture to tap into. That's all coming up from the Caribbean. This is going to be the same kind of scenario we see not just today, but into tomorrow, too. We head into your Thursday, more of this heavy rain on tap. We're going to likely see those saturated waterways, grounds, causing more problems when it comes to flash flooding, much like what we saw yesterday. Here's a look at your Friday. More of the same. Unfortunately, this front is still going to be sticking around for folks to have to deal with this flooding. Here's the rainfall forecast as we get through Saturday. Yesterday, we saw really impressive rainfall rates in places like Sarasota. They picked up 8 inches of rain in just 3 hours, setting records for rainfall rates per hour. So today, likely seeing another kind of round of that, specifically across parts of Southwest Florida, where we could see over a foot of rain here by the time we get into the weekend. But I think even if you look a little farther to the east, across portions of the east coast of Florida, places like West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, they really only need to pick up maybe 1 inch to 2 inches of rain to see that flash flooding threat that they saw yesterday happen once again today. And of course, we're not even 2 weeks into hurricane season just yet, but we're already talking about an area of potential development. Now, you might have seen this on social media. We do have Invest 90L that we're going to keep a close eye on. It doesn't look like anything much of interest, guys, honestly, but over the next week or so, we'll keep an eye on it. It really wouldn't develop until we get out over the Atlantic as we get into the next maybe couple of days. I think it'll cross the state of Florida later today, and then we'll have to watch for that in the Atlantic as we get into maybe the later parts of our work week. Big picture look for your weekend ahead. We've got record highs on tap across not just the Southwest, which, by the way, will hit the triple digits today. They're going to keep that going across the Southwest, not to just today, but into tomorrow and into Friday. But also the Midwest and parts of the East are going to get in on the record high potential with 90s on tap for a lot of folks. We've got that flood threat sticking around through Friday, as I mentioned, across the state of Florida, and a little bit of rain for the Northeast. But don't worry, your Saturday looks a lot better. We've got sun and warmth on tap for folks across the Northeast. Unfortunately, the rain, no surprise, sticks around for parts of the South. We got lots of sunshine on tap for folks across parts of the Southwest. It'll stay hot. It'll stay dry, guys. And of course, Father's Day is coming up. The Southwest Sizzler, Savannah, that one's for you. A little alliteration for you this morning. And also super sunny to celebrate dads in the Northeast. But guys, triple digits for a lot of folks for Sunday. So maybe some indoor plans. I don't know. AC.
Putting the air conditioner to the test. What better Father's Day gift than the gift of AC?
Yeah, they'll be thrilled when they get that bill in the mail, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Angie.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.